Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Boom Boom Review Stuff, and I am back for another television review. I feel like I have watched so many shows in the last week and since my last review that I'm like, I don't even know which one to review. I've watched documentaries and I have watched television shows, and last night I just finished a show on Netflix, and that was what I was gonna do the review of today. But I think that I should probably go back and do my review of White Lotus Season 2, because I haven't reviewed that yet, and I know that down the road I will be upset that I haven't done my review of that, and I haven't said my 2 cents about what I thought about the show. So I want to go in and I want to do my full review. I'm going to do a short review over here today of White Lotus, and I really want to know what you guys think in the comment sections below. So I want to talk a little bit about White Lotus 2. I want to talk a little bit about White Lotus 1 and 2 together, and then I want to talk about, kind of like the purpose of these shows. So let's get into this. Now, I will tell you that I'm going to be spoiling the show. I'm going to be talking about things that happen in White Lotus 2. So if you haven't seen it, you're not going to want to watch this video until after you have seen White Lotus 2, which I would recommend. I have watched White Lotus Season 1 and White Lotus Season 2. White Lotus Season 1, it was interesting because they have put this in the genre of dark comedy. I don't necessarily feel like either one of them, Season 1 or Season 2, are a dark comedy. I feel like there are comedic parts to both seasons, but I don't necessarily feel that they deserve to be in the genre of dark comedy. I feel they're much more serious than that. And that brings me kind of to wanting to talk about both of these seasons together and really what the magic is about White Lotus that I think I understand better now, having watched Season 2 as well as Season 1. When I watched Season 1, and I watched it, to be honest with you, partly because I'm just such a huge Steve Zahn fan from way back in the day of Joyride. I don't know if you guys remember that movie, like, Candy Cane and all that. I love that movie. So anyway, I've loved Steve Zahn for a long time. And so I went into that movie, and I can't think of the other guy's name, Murray, that was on the HBO show Looking. I loved that show, and I think he won an Emmy for that season. And Jennifer Coolidge, of course, I adore Jennifer Coolidge and everything that she's in. And it's so interesting. I think people she's a very polarizing actress. Like, people either love Jennifer Coolidge or they really dislike Jennifer Coolidge. But I love Jennifer Coolidge. Like, I can't get enough of her. For me, she's kind of like Melissa McCarthy. Like, I love everything that she's in. And I could just watch an entire, I would love to see 2-hour just stand-up special of Jennifer Coolidge just talking to the audience about her life. I would love that. So anything that she's in, I love. When I watched Season 1, I went into it thinking that it was going to be a comedy, right? And I can remember even seeing the trailer, and the trailer, they kind of even built up to be this comedy. And then I watched it, and I was like, this isn't a comedy at all. And if you watched my vlog from back in the day, if you're one of my vlog watchers, hi, thank you. I'm a vlog watcher. Anyway, I talked about it at the time, and what I said was that they were talking about very deep issues. They were talking about issues that, in a way, for the person watching it, it was even almost uncomfortable to watch. There was a lot of issues about racism in there, and there were a lot of issues about, equality, and there were a lot of issues about, just judgment and things like that. And now having seen Season 2, what I know is that the purpose, I think, that the writers have done with White Lotus is that it's supposed to make you uncomfortable, right? And what it does is that it brings the audience member along into this kind of vacation realm, but you're supposed to be relaxed and you're supposed to be enjoying your life and whatever, right? When you are encountering very serious topics. So for example, White Lotus 1, the White Lotus Resort, was in Maui. White Lotus 2, the resort was in Sicily, okay? So these beautiful resorts, these beautiful locations, but then it's these very kind of serious issues that are going on within the lives of the people that are there. So that's kind of what happens, right? And it's not on a soap opera level. It's real issues, you know? And I can remember watching season 1, and like I said, yes, there were funny parts. But, you know, like, for me, there were some very tragically sad, but I think, like, true, honest moments. Like, when the spa owner was, like, putting together a business plan because Jennifer Coolidge said that she would financially back her to start her own spa, and then at the last minute kind of, like, pulls out. You know, like, that was, like, really a difficult moment for me. And I think of watching it, and I think what was difficult was I've known a lot of people like Jennifer Coolidge. I've known a lot of people that kind of wield their power and their wealth and their money around, and it's like they kind of minimize the importance of people, you know, or their stories. And so I think on that level, White Lotus was really important, the first season, you know, and it's like, and also, you know, with just the dancers and that whole scene and everything like that, it was such an uncomfortable show that at times, like when you're watching it, it really makes you question your own thoughts and how you feel about things. And I can remember saying that on my vlog. I was like, it's not a funny haha show, like it's an uncomfortable show to watch, right? And so, and it's kind of like, as you go and you're watching more and more of it, it's kind of like this meltdown is happening over time of these people. And so going into season 2, I didn't really know what to expect. And to be honest with you, I really was kind of reluctant to watch it. Like I knew I would watch it at some point, but I wasn't like, okay, I can't wait to get into this. And it was about, I would say, like on the 5th episode that I was seeing like everybody on the internet talking about it. And they were like, oh my God, I can't wait for the next episode to come out. And this is the greatest thing ever and blah, 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 whatever. And I was like, and it felt to me kind of at that point that it was like a lot of people that hadn't watched season 1, but I could be wrong. And I was like, this has to be so different because I liked season 1. Like season 1 was good. I thought it was well written. I think in retrospect, having seen them both now and knowing them together, I would rate season 1 higher because I think I understand the purpose and the motive behind season 1. At the time that I watched it, it just kind of left me feeling sad, and like it was very much like The Patient that I watched earlier this year that I said was like one of the worst shows that I watched of 2022. Like it left me feeling sad, it really like in my thoughts, in my head, like I didn't, you know, it just was kind of like that. So I go in and I started watching White Lotus season 2 when all 7 episodes were out, okay? And I literally binge watched it in like 2 days or something like that. And I got in it and I was like, okay, this is kind of different, first of all, than season 1. Season 2 is a little bit not as serious, and the issues are completely different. And I don't know the actors and the actresses' names for all of this, just like Jennifer Coolidge and F. Murray Abraham, I know their names, but like other than that, I don't know these actors and actresses' names, so I apologize. But, you know, for example, like there was a lot, I think, about like loyalty. There was a lot about sexuality. There was a lot about like marriage, commitment, and things like that in this one that wasn't in the first one that was so interesting to me. And so, like, for example, when you take like the 2 couples that were traveling together, like that whole like dichotomy of those relationships like was so interesting to me, and I really enjoyed watching it. But I have to say, like, having traveled with other couples or having had other friends that are, you know, couples and whatever, it was interesting because you do, as a couple, I think, kind of compare yourself to other people or whatever, even though you know you shouldn't do that. And so you're constantly like in your head, like, oh, well, they're this way or they're that way, or what, you know, you're thinking this, you're thinking that, or whatever. It's very, like, White Lotus is like this escape from reality, but it's like it brings reality to your doorstep. And then, you know, the character of Tanya, played by Jennifer Coolidge, and she's got her assistant with her. And she's mean to this assistant, Portia, because she's just trying to make her husband happy. And here it is again, we're talking about marriage, right? And her trying to make her husband happy. And so her husband could care less about her, which we find out later the reason why is, I think if I understood this correctly, because he was in love with that guy and they were trying to kill Tanya so that they could go off and like have the money all to themselves. Is that what I understood? And that he was the guy that was on, anyway, that's how I understood it, because her husband was going to inherit all the money if Tanya died, which she did, so he apparently inherited all the money. This was what ruined it for me. I was on Twitter one night and somebody tweeted out and said, I hope they hire Jennifer Coolidge for season 3 to play her twin to dispose of her ashes in the ocean from season 2. And I was like, oh, so Jennifer Coolidge dies in season 2. And then somebody else said something about Portia being kidnapped, and I was like, oh, so something's going to happen to them. And it doesn't happen until like the second to last episode, right? Which, by the way, yes, this is the hat that that guy wears in the deranged guy that is the supposed nephew of one of the gays. The gays are trying to murder me! That was my favorite scene. My friend Tanya and I have sent that like meme back and forth to each other. But anyway, so yeah, there was, like, the couple part for me was probably what I was the most intrigued with watching. And I have to say, it's interesting, like, when you watch a show like this, like, who you most relate to. And I have to say, like, so a lot of people are saying that, I don't know what her name is, but the red-haired woman that was married to the kind of, like the guy that, I don't know what his name is, but anyway, so the woman with the dark hair, the wife with the dark hair, like, I really kind of like related to her in the show, and I was kind of like with her questioning and things like that, and kind of like being paranoid and whatever. And you know, I've often felt like that, especially as a person, I think, in sobriety, where I've been put in situations where I'm like, kind of like, okay, I feel like I don't like really fit in here, and like, are my morals or my values different than the people around me? And I understood like watching the show, like how you could feel like that. So and then, you know, like the two prostitutes, I just have to say, like, I really enjoyed their whole storyline. I didn't even really get it until the very last moment when the guy, okay, so it was the grandfather, the father, who I really didn't like his character at all. He just really wasn't like a good, and this is where it was like a lot about marriage and infidelity and cheating and all that kind of stuff. But I thought like it was done in an important way, and it was done in a way that you could like have discussions with yourself while you were watching it and ask yourself kind of certain questions. And then the grandson, right, who ends up sleeping with the prostitute and getting her all the money. Like, I couldn't even figure it out until the very end. And this is what I did like about the show and the writing I thought was so genius, was that a lot of it like didn't even like, I was like, oh, okay. Because he was like, oh, and I got scammed or something like that at the end. Like, I didn't even get it that this was like a setup that these girls do, that they have these guys like act like they're, I didn't even get it. So it like, I mean, I got it in the end, you know, but you know, just to kind of like imagine, like their storyline was good. I have to tell you, I loved the hotel manager storyline, and I thought it was so endearing when the girl like slept with her that one night and was like, we're gonna find you a girlfriend. And you know, she just was like such a lonely soul, and she just wanted to be loved so much. And so I don't know, like so much for me, the discussion of love, sexuality, commitment, marriage, relationships, things like that. And that was obviously what this was about. Whereas the first one, I think, was more about, you know, like prejudice and racism and just like how we treat people and equality and things like that. And it's interesting because when you look at those together, what it says is that White Lotus is really throwing in our face very uncomfortable topics that need to be discussed, but putting them in an environment where we would maybe like not discuss it. You know what I mean? Like in this like resort kind of environment. So I mean, you don't expect to have these like deep feelings and emotions and thoughts when you're sitting there at a resort in Maui or in Sicily, right? So it's interesting. And even like I loved the scenes where like the grandfather wanted to like go find his family, and the woman came outside and was like telling them to get the F off their property and stuff like that. It's like, you know, for me, it really read into like expectations that we have for people or outcomes in our life. I don't know, the show's very deep, you know, the show is very, very deep for me. And I think like on some level, like Jennifer Coolidge like offered some comedic relief to it. You know, like when she's like talking to the captain and she's like, of the boat, and she's like, the gays are trying to murder me. And he's like, I'm gay. And she's like, oh my God, you know. But then that made me sad too. And I was actually talking to my best friend about this, you know, like when she was like in the bedroom, and you could tell like true fear like in her face, you know. And like here was this woman that had been sheltered her entire life, you know, by money and by security. And she's like completely afraid, and she comes out just shooting, and you know, and it was like this just very sad moment, like, you know, like, but like, and then her grip on reality also, like, and I think this also spoke to a lot of wealth. Like, it's kind of like, I feel this way a little bit about the Hiltons, like Paris and Kathy Hilton. Like, they just kind of don't like really grip reality if you watch them in reality shows a little bit. It's like when she was looking at the guy that was like bleeding out of his mouth, right? And she had shot him, and she's like looking at him with the gun, and she goes, tell me, is he cheating on me? It's like, girl, like, you just killed this man, right? So anyway, but I thought the whole show was so fantastically done. I loved it. Of course, I'll watch season 3. Jennifer Coolidge died, which was so sad, so she won't be in season 3. And I mean, and that kind of, like, that whole scene kind of made me sad too. Like, when she, like, you know, I was so hoping she would just make it to the boat and whatever. But, you know, there were very genuine moments too, like where, and I think that we saw through her eyes. Like, I really loved the scene when they went to the opera. Like, this is so me and my best friend, so I loved the scene. And this is where I talk about comedic relief. But she looked at the gays, and she was like, is that the Queen of Sicily? And they're like, mm-hmm. And she's like, I loved that scene so much, because that is so something me and my best friend would do. But, you know, like, at the same time, like, when she was talking to Portia about the guy, and she was like, pull it together, Portia, you know, and, like, you could tell, like, in an indirect way, like, she really cared about Portia, and she said, you know, I can see a lot of myself in you. And she had that ability. But then she would flip, and she would say things like, a lot of times, like that scene where she was like, a lot of times I feel like I should have invested in that woman's spa in Maui. She said, but there's just something witchy about those healing people. I mean, it's just like, you know, like, girl, seriously. But anyway, I thought it was fantastically done, you know. And I have to say, having watched season 2 now, I really appreciate season 1 even more. And if you watched season 2 but you didn't watch season 1, I would highly suggest watching season 1. I actually think, like, my husband just watched season 1 and season 2 back to back. I actually think that watching season 2, if you haven't seen season 1, it would be really interesting to go back and watch season 1, or go watch it now, because I think that you would get a completely different read out of it. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.